it's Memorial Day here on The Story, and today's holiday is especially unique. In fact, what's happening today won't happen again for 100 years. Plus, new insight on how Oregon counties are spending money meant for deflection. That's treatment over jail for those caught with hard drugs. But first, a follow-up to an investigation that we have been following for months regarding a specific type of handgun that some say can fire on its own and without warning. It's our big story tonight. Several police agencies in the state of Washington are getting rid of their controversial firearms, specifically the Sig Sauer P320. But the guns are not being destroyed. In fact, they could soon end up in the hands of private citizens. Chris Ingalls continues his investigation into the gun that some experts call a safety threat.
Hey guys, it's Rick with Achilles Heel Tactical.
One of the newest videos making the rounds on the internet comes from this Knoxville, Tennessee firearms trainer, an instructor teaching a live fire course.
Like my demonstration, I want you guys. All right.
Is that a 320?
Yep.
Is interrupted when a handgun fires during a ceasefire.
Get this gun off my range. Don't bring it back on the range.
The instructor is convinced the Sig Sauer model P320 fired without the student pulling the trigger and bans the gun from his range.
These guns will not be tolerated in these classes at my training center or at our training events any longer.
As the evidence against the P320 grows, more Washington law agencies are shedding the firearm that's commonly used by police and the military.
Next is the replacement of police-issued firearms.
At this Burlington City Council meeting in Skagit County, a police commander requested replacing the P320s that their officers carry.
They decided we should go with the Smith & Wesson MP2. So I'm here to request approval to purchase the 33 firearms we need.
Records requested by the King 5 investigators show the low bid for those 33 new guns is $28,000 from a company called Proforce. But there's a catch. Burlington will get credit for trades, which makes the price $13,000 less than other bids. The city will send its P320s to the firearms dealer for resale and, according to the mayor, wash the city's hands of any liability.
By working with a federal registered firearm dealer, they take the risk of buying them. As far as potential lawsuits coming back, if somebody should buy one of these and have a misfire, if we sell them out to individuals, we assume that risk. If we sell them to these firearms organization, they assume the risk then when they resell them.
But is it right for a public safety agency to put questionable firearms back in the public's hands, even indirectly?
What do you think of that?
It's shameful that those weapons are going to be in the homes of civilians, knowing that the gun could go off at any time.
Craig Jacklin is a retired Pennsylvania transit cop who worked the commuter tunnels in Philadelphia.
That's crazy, man. There's a bullet right there.
He was on patrol with his partner in 2018 in this golf cart when they came to a stop.
Both hands on the steering wheel, I could go to exit the vehicle and a weapon went off. Boom, just like that.
It's holstered. It's holstered. I'm sitting right there. It just boom. No, I didn't get hit.
You're not hit?
No.
A woman had just entered the hair shop that we were parked in. The round missed her by a millisecond. It missed her foot by a millisecond. She walked by and boom, you can see the impact on the ground.
Yeah, I need you to 107 me, sir.
Officer Jacklin said his P320 fired on its own. The transit authority cleared him of any wrongdoing and quickly dumped their Sig Sauers for a different brand of handgun.
My gun just went off.
What the hell?
There was no shooter? Sir?
In the 6 years since Jacklin's case, dozens of other victims across the country, many of them police officers, have claimed their P320s fired, often while holstered.
And downrange.
As we reported exclusively in February, the Washington Academy that trains all police officers banned P320s at its facilities. Jacqueline says the gun should be pulled off the market, not put back up for sale by police agencies trying to save a buck.
And every police department that has that weapon, you know, they know the risk.
Furthermore, King 5 has obtained records from 2018 showing a Burlington sergeant reported his P320 fired completely on its own, blowing apart his holster and ripping through his pants pocket.
Oh my God, what was that?
Last year, body cameras were rolling as a Kitsap County Sheriff's deputy's holstered P320 fired during a struggle in a grocery store.
That's an empty shell.
That came out of your gun?
That just came out of my gun.
In each case, Sig Sauer investigated and claimed objects like handcuffs entered the holster and pulled the trigger.
What do you make of that explanation?
I think it's misdirection.
Jeff Bagnell is a Connecticut lawyer who has sued Sig Sauer nearly 24 times.
They say this all the time, Chris. Every time this happens, they say something got in the holster.
Sig Sauer has never responded to our numerous requests for comment, but in press releases has said the P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without a trigger pull. It blames negligence or faulty equipment in each case.
Growing concerns about the safety of the P320, which has been involved in multiple lawsuits.
Like Burlington, Kitsap County commissioners this year also decided to buy new handguns and trade in the department's 229 P320s to reduce the cost by $108,000. County commissioners seem well aware of the risk of selling guns that the state says are too dangerous for police officers.
I'm all for it, but not putting weapons out there on the street that are defective, potentially defective.
But that's $100,000.
It's $100,000, right? But my conscience is killing me here. What's $100,000 in somebody's life?
The Kitsap County Commission emphasizes that it was the sheriff's decision to trade the guns in for credit. A sheriff spokesperson said that is logical and the fiscally responsible thing to do. And we do not know if the dealer will resell these weapons and whether they may go to the public. It would be a waste of tax dollars to destroy them. Now, we've checked with some of the biggest law enforcement agencies in Oregon to see if they use the P320. Most of them who got back to us said no. Portland, Gresham, Oregon State Police, and the Marion County Sheriff's Office do not use it. Oregon's Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, which runs Oregon's Police Academy, says they only have one used by staff. Well, back in Portland now, where we're getting a look at the results from a 5-day police mission last week, targeting drug users all across town. The goal? To send as many people as possible to deflection, to try and get them into treatment rather than jail. Between Monday and Friday last week, 78 people were taken to the deflection center. 66 others were arrested, either for probable cause or because they had warrants. All right, here's a breakdown of how the mission went. There are a lot of numbers, but stick with me. Monday, officers were along West Burnside and Southwest 12th Avenue, 7 arrests and 13 deflections. Tuesday was focused on Couch Park, 3 arrests there and 12 deflections. On Wednesday, officers were in Old Town, 2 arrests and 20 deflections. Thursday was focused on the Central East Side, 15 arrests and 13 deflections. And on Friday, Governor Tina Kotek sent Oregon State Police to help Portland police in the South Park blocks and Goose Hollow neighborhoods. That mission resulted in 39 arrests and 20 deflections. Now, while we're on the topic of deflection, the Oregon legislature announced $20 million in grants last year to help jurisdictions across the state connect people to substance use services. But a recent report from The Guardian took a closer look at how that money is being spent. And we think what they found is worth your time. The article is written by Sam Levin and was published last week. It goes through the recriminalization of possession of hard drugs in Oregon and how deflection is meant to be an off-ramp to keep people out of jail. Now, part of the deflection push was that $20 million in grants spread to each of the state's 36 counties. But there was not clear guidance or rules on how to spend it. No surprise, that led to wildly different approaches county by county. And The Guardian took a close look at budget documents they received through public records requests. Washington County, for example, has a $1.5 million deflection budget. Nearly $700,000 of that went to hiring 3 new law enforcement positions: a deputy DA, a legal specialist for the DA's office, and a sheriff's lieutenant. There was also $40,000 for the sheriff's office overtime budget. Meanwhile, $360,000 were distributed to programs like Community Peer Mentor Substance Use Services. Now, in budget documents, the county says the new law enforcement positions will help facilitate people getting referred to deflection. But Washington County was not alone in prioritizing law enforcement spending. Clackamas County spent more than $250,000 to hire another senior district attorney. Clatsop County budgeted more than $70,000 to buy 2 tools to scan and identify drugs through plastic bags or glass containers. Now, it's worth noting that this spending, meant to be for deflection, was approved by the state's Grant Review Committee for deflection. So it's not like the counties are doing anything wrong with the money. But some argue it should not be going towards law enforcement and instead be used for actual treatment. Now, that is happening down in Lane County, spending over $375,000 on low-barrier emergency housing focused on treatment, and another $700,000 for a contract with a firm that provides addiction medication. Now, of course, there's a lot more nuance to this story that we just don't have time to cover, so make sure to check out the entire article at theguardian.com. More than 3,000 people have signed a petition asking Oregon Governor Tina Kotek to review a criminal case and release a firefighter from prison for an incident that happened last summer. Brian Hakeem Simpson is serving 70 months after a jury convicted him of assault. In southern Oregon last June, a grayback firefighting crew had an off day. And around midnight, another firefighter named Brandon Olson woke up and confronted coworkers, telling them to shut the F up. Simpson responded and claims Olson, who is white, told him to, quote, pull your effing pants up, N-word. A trial transcription show Olson threw the first punch. Simpson's defense claims he was acting in self-defense.
He admitted at trial that he threw the first punch at a kid. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. My opinion is I don't think it was a crime because I believe he was acting in self-defense.
Now, Simpson admits he punched him back. The two tussled, and when Olson got up and came back, Simpson said he hit him a few more times and kicked him, according to trial transcripts. Now, in August, an all-white jury in Josephine County found Simpson guilty of assault in the second degree. A judge sentenced him to 70 months in prison, noting the severity of the victim's injuries and Simpson's 2 prior felony assault convictions. At trial, Olson denied using the N-word, but another witness said that he did. Supporters claim Hakeem Simpson is being criminalized for being the victim of a hate-fueled attack. Okay, well, Kyle Eboshi joins me now. Kyle, you actually talked with Simpson on the phone from Snake River Correctional. So what did he tell you?
He claims this is self-defense. He also noted that he's a little bit worried that an appeal could take years, and he really hopes the governor intervenes. Here's a portion of that phone conversation.
Once this is done, I want to get back out there and continue to fight fire and do the best I can to be the best firefighter I can and the best person I can, for the community.
Again, he appreciates the support of the many people who've signed that petition and hopes the governor takes another look at the case.
So, Kyle, how about the district attorney down in Josephine County? What did they tell you?
Yeah, so he shared an email with me essentially saying, listen, this defendant had a defense attorney who was certainly capable. A jury found him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What was really interesting, though, was this statement describing the background of the situation, saying our position both before and at trial is that the first hit was likely justified, or at least could be. But the repeated kick stomps to the face head area were not. The victim had several facial fractures and needed surgery.
My goodness. So what do we know about the other man involved here, Brian Olson?
Yeah, a couple interesting things. Olson is suing Grayback Firefighting for $1.8 million, claiming they never should have hired Simpson. In October, Olson was charged with stalking in an unrelated case. We should mention we tried to reach out to him and couldn't be reached for comment.
All right, Kyle Eboshi, thank you for your reporting. Well, coming up next, a story with footage from the KGW vault brought 3 childhood friends back together amid the push to restore a Portland neighborhood to its former glory. And later, we hear from the University of Portland professor who found why today's Memorial Day holiday is especially unique and why it won't happen again for a century. That's all coming up when the story returns. Well, Portland's Albina community was once a flourishing space that many Black Portlanders thrived in. Last year, we highlighted the ongoing efforts being made to bring the community back to what it once was. Well, turns out 3 childhood friends saw our story and realized some of the faces in our archive footage looked awfully familiar. Sabina Pierre has the story.
All these years I wondered, where did that video go?
A simple clothesline and children playing. Moments captured by KGW cameras in 1980 that would become a bridge across time for 3 childhood friends.
When I saw it, I did shed a few tears just because seeing my mom and hearing her voice.
And I actually kept rewinding and I was looking like, is that them? Is that them?
Roshan spotted her childhood friend Polly and his sister Nora Lee in a story KGW produced last February.
I like to brag to all of my friends that I know now, this is my first friend. The rest is history.
Yeah. Their mothers created a community where children felt both protected and free, building memories that would last a lifetime.
My mom, she was a caregiver. I would say that. Some of the kids she would watch after school.
Growing up Black in Albina during the 70s and 80s meant learning important lessons about identity and respect, values they carry with them today.
My mom raised me to love everybody, but I remember her always telling me, Rashawn, remember you have to do things 10 times better than the white child because they're going to be looking at you probably to mess up.
Though gentrification has transformed the area, all 3 still live here, carrying on the values instilled in them by their mothers.
I like to see the community come together because we want to, not because we have to.
significant efforts are underway to restore and revitalize the community they love. The Albina Visions Trust Albina One Housing Development is set to open this year as the trust work to acquire the historic Paramount apartment, still under contract but not yet purchased. The 1803 Fund, an investment group established to support Black communities in Portland, is a key partner in this revitalization. Rather than functioning as a traditional developer, the 1803 Fund is an investment group with a mission focused on the Black community.
Everything that we do in this organization is interested in sort of long-term population-wide kind of benefit for the community.
Other changes coming to Albina include a buildable highway cover over Interstate 5 designed to reconnect the district. Last year, Oregon's federal delegation secured $488 million to fund the project. Progress continues in Albina, but for three childhood friends, a 1980 video brought the past into focus. In North Portland, Sabine Pierre, KGW News.
On the last Monday in May, a wreath is placed on the tomb of the unknown soldier. American flags are placed on the grave sites of fallen soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery, symbols of Memorial Day, a time to honor our fallen service members. But is it true that Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day? Using these sources, let me walk you through the history of the holiday and why its name changed. When the first national celebration of the modern Memorial Day holiday took place at Arlington National Cemetery on May 30th, 1868, the holiday was called Decoration Day. According to the Library of Congress, John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief of an organization of Union Army veterans, established May 30th as Decoration Day, a time for the nation to decorate the graves of fallen Civil War soldiers with flowers. But tributes to soldiers lost in the Civil War occurred throughout the country before the 1868 observance. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs says approximately 25 places, many in the South, have been linked to the holiday's origins. After World War I, the holiday was expanded to honor all fallen soldiers. In 1938, Congress recognized Decoration Day as a federal holiday. According to the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Memorial Day became a more popular name for the holiday after World War II. And in 1967, the federal government officially adopted the new name. Then, in 1971, a law was passed that changed the holiday from May 30th to the last Monday in May. So there you have it. Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day, and it wasn't always celebrated on the last Monday in May.
All of a sudden, the light bulb, came in. I said, oh, Memorial Day happens to be one of these. So that got my attention, and I said, when did Memorial Day become palindrome before? And that's when I realized it never did.
So for the first time in the history of the United States, Memorial Day is on a so-called palindrome day, when it's written in the format you see right there on your screen. The numbers read the same forwards and backwards. A longtime electrical engineer professor at the University of Portland brought this to our attention today. You just heard from him. Azin Anan calls today a once-in-a-lifetime palindromic Memorial Day. It happened back in 1935 on Decoration Day, the precursor to Memorial Day, but has not happened since the change to Memorial Day became official in 1971. The next time Memorial Day will fall on a palindrome day, not for another century, May 28th, 2125. And again, a decade later on May 30th, 2135. After that, we'll be waiting a while.
I said, I'm not only going to look at 22nd century when you are going to have two palindrome Memorial Days, but what about 23rd century? I wondered, I said, is there going to be one or two? And I realized that there's not going to be any palindrome Memorial Day in the 23rd century, because interestingly enough, in the 23rd century, in the year 2225, which ends with 25, Memorial Day is going to happen on May 30th. That's why that date is not going to be a palindrome number. And then in the year 2235, Memorial Day falls on May 25, which is not a 31 or 31 type of date. And so in the 23rd century, there's not going to be any palindrome Memorial Day.
Okay, so each century can either have 1, 2, or 0 palindromic Memorial Days, making this year's single occurrence quite rare. Well, that's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Straight Talk is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.